So when everyone goes, oh, printer goes burr, is going to replace, traditional war games. It's like, no, it's not until you have a further external factor, which will be something that impacts distribution, which is tariffs. I'm trying to think of anything else stupid that's been going on in gaming. I mean, obviously, Blue Sky's like turning into quite a hub for creators as Twitter X burns to the ground, and I'm glad it is. Yeah. And then obviously Threads has always been a bit of a roleplay hub as well with people. I'm trying to think of just general anything else amusing or ridiculous that's been happening with hobbies. Oh, I did see that the writers for the Stargate RPG that was back in 2019 that got funded.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
some of those a good number of the writers still haven't been paid.
Typical.
It's just fucking ridiculous.
I mean, did it come out? I didn't even.
Oh, it's out.
Follow up. I mean, it's a
5e the stuff thing, these writers have done. The adventures some of these writers should be paid for have been published, and they've still not been paid.
Oof. Yeah. Oh, man.
So as always, and this is something I've with my year coming up and stuff of work to be done and other things related. Advice to anyone listening to this is make sure you get paid, have it written down, don't sell yourself for cheap, because it's just a race to the bottom then, and that's what everyone wants to exploit, and so don't get exploited. It's not worth it. Yeah. And that's basically part of me also year on year or month on month even at this rate. I think I'm being more and more detoxified from working in academia. Like academia takes the piss. At least in the UK, and there's a whole funding crisis of academia right now in the UK. Yeah. Which is partially related to, the Brexit and immigration policies, and it's just like I'm so glad I'm not involved in that crap anymore. It's a shame, but that's what it is. So I guess the question I've got, I mean, the opening question is Trench Crusade the is that the true antidote to the absolute dark timeline that the world is on right now? What? Is it? Well, you know how we always say we can't Vampire the Masquerade just doesn't seem fun because it's so heavily rooted in our current world, and you can't, and it's a bit hard to go darker or satirize it in the same way.
Oh yeah. When I ran Vampire last summer for some people, and I was describing the world of darkness, it's like our world but darker, and kind of listing off the things, and they just kind of laughed. To be honest, yeah. It's almost a parody of itself at this point, which is humorous in some ways, but other people just don't seem to get it. So Trench Crusade being, an alternate World War I, where the Crusades never ended, and also there's crazy demons and other things. Certainly it gives you something that you can tangibly rage against. Or you can play as, the bad guys as well, which look sick. I mean, some of these kind of demonic beings. I'm looking at a couple of the miniatures right now. We got the one floating kind of horned demon guy with 5 arms. Why does he have 5 arms? It's just awesome. And really just artistic and creative. Is that the antidote? I'm not sure I would.
It's not the answer, but I think it's the why. I think it's why people are latching onto it, and it's the same. I think it's the same. I think it's interesting because I compare it to. I don't compare it. It's interesting how I feel Vampire the Masquerade doesn't feel, and World of Darkness in general just doesn't feel enticing to engage with, while even a game which is by comparison has some of the same touchstones to our world, I think, because it tries to answer the questions differently. Like Cult is the world is shit, and we're trying to understand why the world is shit, but it's it's on such a metaphysical level of trying to explore why the world is the shithole it is. Whereas vampire just, I guess even when you try and run vampire as like serious as possible, it still comes across as quite cartoonish, like mustache twirling villains. Even as hard as you try to not have your vampires be that, like the villains that you have in there, the antagonists, it still always, I feel, has that danger of coming across like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about war games.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Let's talk about war games. So yeah, this is Realm of Fire. This is a Dark Days Radio podcast where we talk hot takes and shit posting and so forth about war games. I'm Chris, and I'm joined by Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how we doing? Really glad to be here. Been playing some more games, got some ideas, got some stuff to talk about. So it's cool to be back here in the realm.
Yeah, same. Okay. We'll just go through, like, we'll quickly say what we've been playing. I've been playing Warmachine. I've done 2 demo games of that at the club.
Sick.
That's been really fun with the Dark Fantastic Mills terrain. And I've got some more terrain painted up, so that's all prepped. And my armies are all painted, and I'm in the process of painting my Crix army. I'm going to get the command starter set finished painted tomorrow.
Oh, sweet.
So that makes like a 30-point force. So it's like a warcaster, a warjack, a character warjack, a solo, and a character unit. So it's equivalent to what you get in the new starter set for Kador and Signar.
Yeah, Chris, you've been doing a lot of you've been real ambassador for Warmachine lately, which has been really awesome. And I'm kind of curious about the miniatures a little bit because I see some of your paint jobs, I see some of the paint jobs on the website, and I'm curious, like, are the miniatures highly detailed, or did they just do a ton of like blending with some of these miniatures? I'm thinking like the Chimera, for example, which have it seems like these like really incredible transitions of color.
Let me actually look them up, because Chimera are like, I think are next on my list of factions to collect.
Yeah, sure.
As always, I seem to end up with like multiple, because
Yeah, and for people that aren't familiar with Mark IV, I think the Chimera are kind of like the evolution of Everblight, and I think the Techno dudes. I can't remember.
Cyrus. Yeah, they capture that kind of those aspects because they're techno organic, which is new. Oh, that's the wrong website. That's the old Privateer Press website. I want the Steamforge game website because the images might be a little bit more high quality. Okay, yeah. So looking at the images, right? I think there is detail painted on to the surfaces. So like the mottled scales, that's painted on. So they're painted in a very, I think that how they've been painted is they've been painted in a non-metallic metals process for surfaces that are colored as well, to give that kind of like, it's a weird techno-organic kind of material versus like just skin. So yeah, there is clearly detail painted on, and that's good, because I mean it means then like because I find Warmachine miniatures like generally like MK4 miniatures, because they're slightly bigger scale. Like I think if you compare like this will be so clear, if you compare the Black 13th, the old miniatures for them, to the new ones now.
Sure, yeah.
We're closer to really a 32mm rather than a 28.
Okay, makes sense.
And that just makes life easier, because also I would say the miniatures compared to a typical Games Workshop miniature are less like busy with detail.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at a little bit. I remember the Mark II Warmachine miniatures. They had a lot of like pretty like smooth edges without that much detail. If you wanted to paint something on freehand, you definitely could, or if you just wanted to leave it like a flat panel, that was okay too. Even the Warcasters, some of them were actually pretty simple, especially like the early ones. I'm led to believe that as Mark III went on, actually I've got some Grimkin right in front of me. They did get a lot more busy with those later models, but I think it's nice. We talked about this with like when I was painting like a bunch of historical miniatures, just the simplicity and the ability to just crank a whole bunch out is very nice sometimes. Maybe yes, the miniature could be a lot more detailed, could be a lot more complex, but from a I guess a filthy casual standpoint, I kind of like it. I kind of like the simplicity sometimes.
Yeah, I think it lends itself to contrast paints, taking that approach, doing
Certainly,
slap chop.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's because those paints can do a lot of work for you on the surfaces that are there. And then with the Warjacks, in particular, they lend themselves well um, to let's just being clever with how you use your like spray paints or an airbrush to kind of get your shading in quite quickly. And I often do that, like because I wouldn't really say like I don't the way I'm painting Warmachine, I'm not going into Warmachine painting it to the same level as I would like say a Kingdom Death miniature. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not spending that amount of time. I'm not doing non-metallics on them because I can't be asked, to be
Yeah.
frank. Plus, I've also recently got like sets, like the complete set of like the Scale 75 metallics, which are fantastic. So I'm kind of just painted them to tabletop standard, and they just look pretty badass.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Yeah, no,
Crix models are also good, even though like they've got. I would say the Jacks and that are a bit more detailed than the Kador and um Signal ones that I have, but it's mainly spikes and
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that.
I was about to say that I really like the way you've been painting your cricks. I think it's pretty cool, just having that kind of green glow coming from the some of the interiors where they have that their kind of engine going, the Necro engine. Um,
Yeah.
and that's actually been a little inspiring for me because that's how I was thinking about painting up some Tau for a small like
Ah.
boarding action force. So I was going to try to do not so much the interior glowing, but there's a Tau faction which has a really boring paint scheme, but they're supposed to be the like the void fighters
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
So they've got basically gray and black. Not that exciting, but I was thinking if you have some kind of glowing, some gem effects, maybe some glowing from like their optic sights and other little like readouts on them, that would really spice up the miniatures quite a bit. So I'm going to try to do something similar to what you recommended with
Yeah.
the
And
highlighting.
I think on that line of thought, I think Chris Peach did a tutorial video on
He
how
did.
to
I did just
do
see that. Yeah.
the glow effects, but with a
Right.
dry brush. And I also know Byron, who does all the tutorials with the Opus Artist paints, has also done tutorials on that approach. So you don't need to have an airbrush to do it. And like the glow effects on my Crix is not using an airbrush. It's essentially just the fact that if you've got contrast paints or inks, even on a dark surface, it will tint with that color. So it's really about translucency and using using like contrast paints have that translucency built in, like
Sure.
inks like white ink or Vallejo's white glaze paint is also quite good for getting that kind of like to get the shading in and then applying the color over to get the color glow you want.
Mm.
And then on it's the first time I've really done proper smoke glow on my I can't remember what the fuck they're called. But they're the Crix character unit that's in the command starter. They're three ghostly like wizards, and they have they're in their hands are basically is like balefire. So I basically uh painted that area white. um yeah, I just painted it white and then used various green paints. Used a dark green paint, so not a contrast paint, a green paint to as a wash on it to kind of shade it. Then use a lighter green paint, purposely using that as a wash so it settles in the inner recesses. So
Mm.
you get the brighter paint in the recesses, so
Right.
where it's
Yeah.
hottest of the flame, and then did that a bit more to really build up the intensity, and then dry brushed on the tips of the flames a darker green to get true smoke effect. And I'm quite pleased with the end result on those. Yeah, But yeah, Warmachine just plays well. Like the demos I've done, the players just been like, "This game's great. Like every choice is meaningful." Because again, it's quite interesting in this day and age where we've had like we've got the typical Necromunda style, Warcry style, alternating activation, which everyone loves for
Hmm.
skirmish
Yeah.
games because it means you're always active in the game. You're not waiting you know, half an hour for your turn. And then on the flip side, there's there's Warhammer 40k, and then there's also Age of Sigmar, and Age of Sigmar has the double turn, so you could be waiting a long
Oh
time for
yeah.
your turn.
AOS double
And
turn.
and the thing with Warmachine is, even though it is I go and then you go back and forth, so you activate you do your army, and then they do theirs. It still feels more interesting because you're looking at the board, and because it's not a I move everything, then I shoot everything, then I do all my combat. It's I activate this model and do all of its actions now, then move on to the next one. It feels more active because you have to you're looking at the board, you are actually looking at the board to work out the order of actions. Like, do I activate my warcaster now? Do I do that spell now? Oh no, I need to have that thing there first so I can then do the spell on it to get the AoE effect in the right place. Or you need to get your arc node into the right place. Or you need to
So
activate that unit first because that unit's going to power up your warjack. And so it's you're not having a conversation with the dice by doing lots of rerolls. And Warmachine
right.
struck me as that as well. Not that endless godforsaken. I'm rolling 20 dice for shooting, and then I need to get fours to hit, re-rolling ones, and then you've got if it's sixes, it explodes or whatever. Like 40k has got layers and layers of dice re-rolls or conditions on dice,
Oh yeah, the
whereas
re rolls are they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous. But the other thing that I don't think you're bringing up is that if you are an opponent, as this plan, if as your person you're playing against is creating this plan, and you notice what's going on, if you know the game well, or if you played against them before, you have a chance to react. Basically, you could have your warjack go in and basically knock the opposing units back out of the way, getting them out of the range of the spell that they're being set up for, or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. So that's where I think a lot of the spice comes in, especially with these skirmish games. Whereas, yes, with the I go you go, your ability to intervene in an opposing turn is typically highly limited.
yeah, and I think that's why it feels like you can get steamrolled quite easily. And as I said, the person I was doing demos with for Warmachine, he was obviously it's his first time ever playing it, and he was quite surprised where because you're dealing the damage to a warjack, and it seems like a lot being done on your warjack, but then he was also quite surprised like how they don't just get taken off the board quite rapidly. They actually soldier on in a meaningful way um, for quite some time in the
Hmm.
game, and even if they're not actually very good enough, not they're not performing as well as they should do in a certain turn, they're still quite a useful blocker. Like having a big warjack with
Mm, mm,
heavy armor. Yeah, sure, okay, it's had its arms blasted off, right? But if it still can move, it can still do like slam attacks. It can still just, body an opponent's unit or trample it or things like that. So it feels very different to the equivalent of like in 40k and Age of Sigma, where your big monsters and your vehicles and such, like as they get wounded, all you really see is a kind of a rather flat across the board stats diminish, whereas it really feels like in Warmachine Hordes, like an arm has been blown off, or
mm.
the beast the war beast is 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 more feral, effectively, things like
Yeah.
that. um so yeah, it's been really interesting coming back to Warmachine. I know I'm obviously I'm highly biased because right for the RPG, but
Sure.
um I'm still being honest about, because this is the first few games I've had, because I realized it was only a year ago I got the Kador and Signar army boxes through in the post. So it's taken me a year to paint and get into playing. But I think it's now pretty magic. It's pretty magic time to get into it because we've got this starter set that I've got arriving in the post next week, and there's just it just feels weirdly, it feels fresh, even though you look at the rules, you look at the core rules, and I've been looking back at Warmachine Prime and Hordes Primal, and the game, other than how you treat, like, you don't have AoEs are treated without, you don't use templates anymore for AoE attacks, and you don't have the free strike rules and so forth, and you don't have. I forgot in Warmachine, in classic Warmachine Hordes, you had to give orders to troops to get them to move, to run or to charge. So we don't have orders, and things can't flee from combat.
Right.
And even though those things are gone, Warmachine is still at its core the same game that it always has been. Whereas I don't feel like I can say that about I think we said this game. We can't say that about 40k at all. Like comparing 40k, it's like comparing Warhammer 40,000 third edition to second edition, very different games. And then comparing 10th edition to sixth edition, because 40k 6th edition was basically, third edition with various bits of polishing and maintenance.
6th edition was the one that just lasted for 14 months or something before 7th came out. It was so brief. Yeah, I don't really know what happened. I don't know if there was problems with it or what, but yeah, that was the one that was incredibly brief.
So yeah, I'm loving Warmachine, and I need to play more. I really need to get people playing because it's just fun. And as I said, the other thing is, like I said, I've played I've done the 2 demos I've done have been a battle group demo, so it's literally just a Warcaster and their Warjacks, and we've done a 30-point game. So that was what would be like a Warjack, Warcaster, Warjacks, a unit, a solo, and
so that's basically what the starter set has. It's 1 Warcaster, 1 Warjack, 1 unit of infantry, and then 1 solo, which I think is pretty interesting. Because I remember the old starter sets that they had were a Warcaster and typically 2 to 3 War Beasts or Warjacks. So I think that's a good way of balancing it, just to give you a flavor for all the basic unit types, essentially. You can see how infantry work and everything. I don't know how it's going to play exactly, because I think there was a really good balance with those Warcaster and 3 War Beasts or 3 Warjacks back in the day, but it's what they're going with, and I think it's probably good to mix it up a little bit.
Definitely. And then, of course, the crazy thing is I also now have my Scorn army back because I won it on eBay.
Can't believe. You did? Oh,
literally, I searched on eBay. I was looking for, because I've got the starter box set Scorn starter. So that means I've got the Warlock with the whips and, 2 Cyclops War Beasts and the Titan Gladiator, and then a unit of swordsmen. Then I won on eBay. I looked on eBay. I was like, I'll get a few more Scorn bits maybe just to build out a small force just for demos and stuff. And I was like, wait a minute, that's my army I sold 4 years ago. And then I won it for like 30 quid. And I sold it originally for I think about 50 quid or so. So, yeah, I just need to strip the paint off it, and then I can start from scratch with the other stuff and have a brand new Hexorus army with Titan Gladiators and Cyclops. I'll try and pick up a few other bits if I can. It's almost 100 points, so it's worth padding out to get it to that size. So it just needs a few solos.
And Scorn are the best. So I mean,
and it'll be dead easy to paint in this day and age, because do you know what I can do? I can just spray the fucking thing, all the troopers and stuff, gold, right?
Yep.
Spray them gold, and then do all the armor plates using red contrast paint.
Yeah, good to go.
And it's just done, and it'll look solid. So, yeah, it's pretty fun times. And they've spoiled inadvertently Steamforge Games they accidentally released um the development rules for some new stuff in the app. So
Hmm.
people got a huge insight and stuff coming up. So from what we understand is Old Umbre is a new faction for Kador, and
Hmm.
there's going to be some similar stuff in some of the other factions like for Orgoth. Um, so these factions are now going to also have warlocks and war beasts of their own, which is really, really
Yeah.
interesting.
Are those the first war beasts we've seen thus far?
For what?
For Mark IV.
No, I mean we've got war beasts in the for Mark IV. We've got the Chimera faction that's already out to buy,
Okay, so they have
uh,
war beasts. Okay.
and you've got Trollbloods with the Brine Bloods,
Oh, of course. Yeah, I forgot about those
the
guys.
pirate Trollkin.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the Chimera I'm interested in getting because I think I can go like really heavy, kind of like Alchemists of Durs style paint scheme on them, uh, or like pick a Tyrannid paint scheme, that type of shit. But yeah, I really just think it's a fun game to get back into, and the fact that you can play a really fun game on a kitchen table like size board, or play a larger game on a 4x4, and the rules scale perfectly for it, really. You don't get any, there's no weirdness that occurs by scaling up because you start introducing really huge, you know, huge models or huge tanks that, or other things. I think the game just scales, which is really fascinating. How about yourself? You've been
Hmm.
playing did you say you've been playing some old world?
Ah, yes, I did play some Old World. So that has been uh, definitely pretty interesting. I know that's kind of a vague word to use, but getting back into it, not having played since Eighth Edition,
Hmm.
basically like 2010. Uh, there's a lot of things I really like about Old World. I think last time I was here on Realm of Fire, I was amped about it. I was so psyched, and we've got it, and it's okay.
It's
um, you
okay.
know,
So
yeah.
what does it, because is it is it partly a nostalgia hit, but then also partly like you realize why it's a slow game?
Well, see,
Is it
they
slow?
they changed
Cumbersome?
things. It's yeah, it's just as cumbersome as it used to be. And I mean, I wouldn't say that I thought it was a super fast game before. I mean, I was thinking about this. I used to play without movement trays, so I would have to move each little individual 20
Right.
by 20 miniature all
Wow.
around and get them all reformed and stuff. It was the dark ages back then, but you had a lot more time on the other hand. So technology has definitely improved with things like movement trades, and but on the other hand, there's really strange decisions that they made when designing this. I don't want to say they definitely play tested it. There's definitely balance in there, but there's really peculiar um, general rules decisions. Like for example, this thing that people keep talking about, and I have experienced, and it's quite annoying, is that skirmishers and monsters have a 360-degree line of sight. That means 360 degrees that they could charge in, which is incredibly powerful. When mounted troops like cavalry or blocks of infantry, they're all still bound by 90-degree line of sight, the wheeling rules, turning, and all of that. That it makes them so incredibly powerful. And that's why we see in some of these tournament lists lots of things like Pegasus Knights, skirmishing cavalry, and then, of course, the dreaded dragon. So uh, it kind of, I think, detracts from the feel of the rank and flank kind of infantry and cavalry based game that you see a lot in like 6th edition Warhammer, 7th edition Warhammer. Uh, but on the other hand, if everyone's, a gentleman and kind of agrees, like, hey, here's the kind of game we're going for, we're going to have blocks of infantry, then, you know, you're going to get what you expect. So I think that would really hold it back
That's
from like a tournament standpoint. But coming up, I am probably going to be playing in a campaign next year, which has me
okay.
excited and leery for what I just mentioned.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, I remember classically, wasn't Beastman like a really skirmish heavy army?
but not anymore. That's the weird thing. They made them all black infantry pretty much, so they don't
Mm.
get the advantage. Wood elves still retain a bunch of their skirmishers, so they get some benefits from that. But one of the killer units has been the Pegasus Knights
Yeah.
for Bretonians. They're just flying around everywhere and just wreaking havoc. Then of course, yeah, dragons. There's clearly ways to counter this. Obviously for shooting armies, having just tons of artillery to shoot the dragon down is definitely one way to kind of even things out. But it's really fun to get back into the world. Certainly, thus far with the arcane journals that they put out, there hasn't been that much lore attached to it. There were some cool things in the Warriors of Chaos one, but the Tomb Kings and the Bretonian ones were pretty flimsy, and they were kind of going for this meta plot where they're all duking it out in the Border Princes. I don't know if you remember the
Yeah.
Warhammer map that well, but it was very random. But it seems like they're getting back into focus more with the Empire and the High Elves and other factions. So I think that's going to kind of bring the old memories back and also introduce some pretty new, exciting kind of meta plot things with the Great War Against Chaos. So we'll see what
I
happens.
mean, looking at the boxes, isn't it like in some respects like per dollar spent, isn't Old World quite, isn't it like it's you get quite a few miniatures now for for what you pay, because essentially you're buying a box contains a full, like, what, 20, if it's a foot trooper unit, like a full 20 or 24 or
If you
30, depending
buy
upon.
if you buy some of the boxes, if you just buy like an infantry box, it'll give you basically twice what an old box would. So if the
Yeah.
Empire State Troopers used to be 20 for a box, you get 40 troopers in it.
But
Um,
the price you're paying though for that 40 is
mhm.
is akin to the price you pay for like 10 or 15 models in Age of Sigmar, isn't it?
Potentially, yeah. The
Yeah.
battalions are pretty good deals usually. Some of the individual boxes can be kind of pricey still, and we're all talking about like Games Workshop prices basically.
Yeah.
So, it might be like, yeah, I get like these 10 dudes for $80, but if I was playing Age of Sigmar, I'd get 3 dudes for $80. So it's a deal? Question mark.
It's because
The
Games
old
Workshop's
sculpts.
they're making bank off old sculpts, yeah.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you look at
yeah,
Tomb King skeletons and compare them to like um what you call it, Soul Blight, Soul Blight skeleton warriors that you get now, and they're like, it's just night and day, the difference
yeah,
in the how chunky
yeah.
the skeletons are.
Yeah. Now I actually do play with those old skeletons, so I kept them from the early 2000s. So uh, I like them, but yeah, they're ridiculously big.
Any
They're all
other than
Viking
highlights
skeletons.
from playing Old World, other than it's just a nostalgia hit of rank and flank wheeling?
Yeah, it really is. I can't say there's any like real killer aspect to it. If you liked Warhammer back in the day, you're gonna have fun playing it.
Yeah.
If you There's a lot of people that are getting into it that just played the video games like
Yeah.
uh, Total War, for example, and they're having a blast with it as well. I know there was people joking that people would they'd come from Total War to play Old World and they would just like get turned off immediately because it's like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, it's so slow compared to this video game. But no, people seem to really enjoy it in that aspect. But this isn't like Warcry coming out and just having these kind of new, really cool dice mechanics. It's not like uh, Adeptus Titanicus coming out and just having this really innovative way to manage your robot as you do this war game battle. It's kind of
Mm.
retreading a lot of classic things, which is the cautious and safe thing to do, and that seems to be what's really informed Games Workshop as they've done the old world. Is they just want to put something out. They know people are going to like it. They're going to get their old models back. There's some old models that are really highly in demand, and they're remaking them, so that's awesome. But it, we'll have to see what happens with the campaign books, which I'm sure they'll put out probably in a year or two. And then we'll have to see what happens with the second edition, which is probably going to happen. Maybe we'll actually get new models then, which would be pretty rad.
Yeah, I think again it's what was interesting in the fact that we've got Old World back. I was like, again, looking back at the old Warmachine books and the notorious in first. I mean, we can talk about it from first edition. The notorious, what became notorious, page 5, and it
Page
became
5.
notorious because of like
Oh
it created a it. I think when you read it, if you take the context of when that came out, right, you can understand what they were trying to say, but they said it badly, and then it became a toxic kind of like vibe for the community
sure.
to adopt, which essentially is War Machine was trying to make a game that was active and fast and favored aggressive tactics in a game versus what would have been at the time Warhammer 5th edition, maybe 5th, maybe 6th.
Fantasy, it would have been
Yeah,
6th edition at that point, but
yeah,
yeah, very very much more ponderous game where you're like, let me check my angles here. I think we can make it. Let me guess my ranges. Oh, my cannon missed. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
War Machine is going to be much more fast paced by comparison.
And literally, you spend like again in Warhammer, you spend like Warhammer Fantasy, you spend like what, maybe the first turn or two is just movement and placing things in the right place, and you might trade a few shots, maybe a bit with your artillery, but not nothing really major's happened at that point. And then someone has to like, make a decision to commit to some action.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Whereas
I mean,
War
I would say
Machine's
that
not that.
War Machine still has a lot of the positioning. Uh, we're talking about Mark 1, Mark 2 still has a lot
Yeah.
of the positioning um, aspects to it. That's a real, we'll call it, feature of that game is like, oh, I can see this very narrow area right here where your guy isn't blocking, and I can shoot your warcaster behind him and that kind of stuff. So it can be just as particular in that way,
Yeah.
which you'll see with old 40k as well, and maybe current 40k. I even remember. I haven't played 10th edition again. I should maybe do that. I don't know.
I can't be asked. I can't be asked
I
touching it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
It's
got like some boarding action stuff, and I kind of would like to do that. I talked to some people a couple months, 2 months ago, 3 months ago about playing, and it just hasn't come to fruition. So I think like small games at 10th edition, and maybe this is a theory I had before, small games would be okay. It's just that big games are just ridiculous. There's too many rules flying around, too many rerolls, all that kind of stuff.
yeah. It's because the other thing I've been playing, or I say playing, I've also I've done some demo games of Necromunda because people wanted to play in a campaign and haven't
Cool.
played modern Necromunda. So I've done the first we've run the first game of the campaign. I've decided after the last campaign where we used pretty much everything you could possibly fit into Necromunda.
Mm,
I trimmed it back, so there's no vehicles in this campaign. There's no going out
okay.
into the ash wastes.
Okay.
It it's just a good old law and order, law and misrule, rackets, grabbing the rackets
Are you
campaign.
just are you just using the core 6 gangs or
No,
the
we're using all the gangs that make sense. So there's no Malstrain in there because it's not Hive Secundus game. But most people are playing either like one of the core gangs, or they're playing Gene Stealer Cults, or I'm using my
cool?
enforcers again for the narrative element as
Sure.
arbitrator, so that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it's again, it's just it's it's a game which it's so weird that we talk about complexity in war games, and we go, when we come to like talking about 40k or Age of Sigmar maybe. But then the complexity in Necromunda is like feels more complex. But I think the difference is because it is just like you might only have on the board 6 of your gangers in a game, and
Hmm.
the rules feel meaningful. Like you go, oh, I'm shooting you with this weapon. Actually, every rule in that feels like it matters. And you're not, again, also, you're not continuously re rolling. You're not rolling buckets of dice and going, oh, is that a 1? Is that a 6? And doing all the layered rules. It's fairly the core of Necromunda feels fairly simple. It's when you start going like, I fired a grav gun at someone, or you fired like some other weird weapon that's got like concussion on it that you have to look up what that means again. So again, it feels much more like a role play game, and yeah, we're gonna. So that's gonna be Law and Misrule. So I'm hoping that we get the first half of the campaign done by the new year. So everyone gets in like at least maybe three games, and then
Cool.
that'll be the first half of the campaign done, and then do maybe a narrative. Figure out what'll be a good like narrative multiplayer mission to play, and go from there. It's just a lot of fun. Again, playing Necromunda is just a lot of fun. It's a good excuse to get out lots of terrain, and the terrain
Yeah.
seems meaningful. Again, because I had this conversation about how 40k's got this weird thing with the terrain is all just really like blocky template terrain, essentially. Like you don't even need to have 3D terrain anymore in 40k, because buildings
Yeah.
take up zones.
So you're saying that what we should just do is we should just have flat cardstock pieces that we'll just put out for tournaments, and that will just be the terrain. Is that what we should do for
Yeah,
40k now?
just 2D. Yeah, I think 40k you
Yeah.
just do 2D terrain. Fuck it.
Oh
Makes no
man.
difference anymore.
Oh,
They've basically gone
jeez.
for tournaments. They've gone because they're supporting it. They've fallen into the. I think they've really fallen into the Warmachine trap.
I think they are.
Whereas I
Yeah.
feel the Warmachine starter set comes with plastic terrain.
It does. Yeah, I was so amped to see that. That's so cool.
And
That's a big change. Big
sure,
change for Warmachine.
2 of those, I think, no, 4 of those pieces are like 6-inch length wall. They're walls, and then 2 of the pieces are rough terrain markers. So they're kind of like you would paint up to make it look like muddy ground, right? So it's just rough terrain. Things move slow through it, but it is terrain, and you can buy specific Warmachine terrain they've done. If I actually look on the shop.
Yeah, they
Where
had
is it?
some, but it was like MDF that you constructed. It was an actual.
Oh no, they've got proper terrain now. They've got
Oh, they do.
you
Oh,
can
wow.
buy a guard tower, a bunker, a Orgoth soul cairn. I don't know what that does.
Whoa.
They still sell the old rather flat Warmachine trenches. They do some defenses, and they do some ancient monoliths, which I don't know what role they have. They mostly have specific rules in like some of the scenarios. But the fact is, you can buy terrain, and they're basically saying, please use 2D, well, not 2D, use
Hmm.
3D terrain, and that's my push as well. So when I'm running Warmachine demos at ChillCon in March in Sheffield. So I'll be using 3D terrain because you want it to look cool. Like why have a boring board? And I think from what I've heard, from what I understand from other people, is that 40k's gone down to this. The board is boring because all the buildings are these L-shaped things that take up a rectangular zone. And if you're in the zone, you're in cover. If you're out of zone, you've got to be in the zone for it to matter. Whereas, like again with Necromunda, you get down on the board, you look at the line of sight, you go, "Oh, is he behind that barrel?" That's kind of cool. It feels immersive.
Hmm. Well, I think they're doing that in the zone, out of the zone to alleviate all those tournament arguments. And
Yeah,
of course, 40k nowadays is very very tournament focused. That's been they want the esports or whatever kind of angle to the game. I also know that there are people that are putting out these like tournament packs with specific terrain that can be used. They
yeah,
can buy in bulk to use at tournaments. So um, there's kind of a monetary reason for that. But on the other hand, you look at some of the terrain that Games Workshop makes and sells, a lot of it's for Kill Team, but there's other things that are still really unique. I don't think they make Cities of Death anymore, but they do have a lot of things that don't play into that kind of zoned technique. So I think there's kind of a disconnect between the kind of artistic nature of what they're doing with that game and some of the gameplay and game design decisions being made.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I like this guard
yeah.
tower though for Warmachine. This is actually a pretty cool one. And you could
It's
definitely You could put it with you could have magnets, so you could take off the roof. You could probably take off the bottom level so
Oh
people
yeah,
can go in.
the layers come off quite happily.
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
And yeah, I mean yeah, it's about some of the places you can buy either plastic or 3D printed terrain. The price is comparable, so
Mhm.
yeah, that's it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So the one other game I wanted to mention, just because we're still just talking about games in general, is that I finally, after 5 years, played Warcry. I did it.
Okay.
Finally played it, and it's a very good game. I really appreciate the
Mm-hmm.
tactical nature, the technical aspects of the game design. I thought that the dice rolling and matching it up to different character abilities was really cool, really slick. But as we were playing it, and we played a whole bunch of missions, we probably did like
Yeah.
5 in a night. I was getting really bored,
Of
which
Warcry.
yeah, I was surprised. I don't know if it's because I kind of built it up in my mind as being like, kind of like new Necromunda, new Mordheim, basically, um, or something else. But I was kind of just sitting there and I was like, wow, there's all these rules, all these mechanics, but I'm still just doing the same thing. I'm moving, I'm shooting, I'm assaulting, and that was pretty much it. And I was getting kind of bored of it. And I understand that that's pretty much how most war games work. Some have different
What
things. So we
what
mentioned Adeptus Titanicus.
what missions were you playing?
Um, we were playing a bunch of pre-written ones. We were doing the Crypts of Blood. So there was just like a beat 'em up mission. We had like a treasure mission. We had a mission where we were supposed to hold different objectives and locations. So it was a bit of a mix of different things. We were playing with the vampires, the
Yeah,
Stormcast, and also Skaven as well, because my friend had the cards for those. So
oh
we
right,
kind of
okay. So you
spiced it up a
basically
little
were
bit.
playing small Warcry. You were playing like 4 or so miniatures aside.
Yeah. I think the
Yeah,
Skaven had 6.
I think that might be where potentially some of the boredom comes from,
Mm,
because
mm,
when you've got larger warbands and I think when you've got larger warbands and you're playing, um if you're playing from the rule book, or if you've got the card sets to randomize the missions, that's
mm,
where
right.
that's where I think that's where the nuances of the game come out, because you've got your warband, which is like up to like, with normally thousand points, it's like 10 models, up to 10 models. So you might
Mm,
have 7,
mhm.
maybe it's 10 depending upon the warband that you're playing. Like Stormcast is very low model count. um and I think when you're into that size of game, then I think you've got a lot more options, because you can go, well, that's a very sacrificial model, and you would go, you'd be like, oh, I've got to like block that enemy, so this one can go off and claim the objective, or do what you're doing, or you may try and swarm something. It makes your choice then of the doubles, triples, quadruples, those abilities that you can trigger, maybe more hard become harder decisions, because you've got
Yeah, that's a good
more
point.
models with which you could trigger those off. So
Mm,
your decisions are less obvious, like they would be if you've only got so if you only got 3 models, like you have with this. I think the Stormcast in that box, you've got 4, because you've got 3 Stormcast and a bird,
the
right?
the Falcon. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've only got your decision making of your doubles, triples, and quadruples is very obvious, I guess. You're going to run or have more attacks. But when you've got double that amount of models to spread that usage across, and also where you could also do half activations, where you just do one action and then, or did you actually, that's a good point. Did you use reactions?
Yes, there were
Yeah.
reactions. I think they must have been simplified because it was just it's basically just you could attack back with your reaction, and
Oh
then
no,
there was
that's
another
there's
option.
far more going on in that. There's
Yeah, there
you
was
could
only
you
there
could
was only
do
a handful.
so you can do reactions where uh every that's a I think there's one which is like strike back. So when your opponent fails to hit you and rolls a 1, you do damage back, or you can negate some hits, or and then you've got your own faction reactions as well. So you've got a specific faction. So I think if you got bored of the starter set, because that's basically what you were playing,
Sure.
then that's a sign that you've already internalized the core mechanics. And what you really need to be doing is playing full Warcry and having full randomized scenarios where you're like, okay, what, like I've had things where it's like, okay, we're going to do it's a treasure hunt. So you've got like treasure counters on the board that you need to collect. And then you go, what's the next card that comes out? And it's like, oh, it's darkness. So maximum range is like 6 inches. And you're like, oh shit, that's like, that changes entirely how you play the game for certain factions, if they're quite shooty. And then you've got like, you might have some other, a twist card that might go, you might put like that the board shrinks every turn. So that if you're within 6 inches of the edge, or normally it's like if you're within 3 inches at the end of the round, those models die, and then if they're within 6 of the edge, those models die, and then on the third turn, it's maybe if they're within 10 inches. So the board gets smaller. There's all these different combinations of missions and deployments of your terrain and twists and so forth that can make the game really, it makes every game very different and creates challenges that you often wouldn't have expected for your faction, because and may, it may mean the game is maybe becomes quite skewed to your opponent by luck, but like that's, you just got to suck it up, because you could play another game the next day, and the cards you draw are more in your favor for how your faction plays.
Yeah. And I've got the old Warcry starter box that came out in 2019, so I can definitely do that sometime with some of those. It won't have reactions, but
you can download all the you can download all the rules for those online, and you've got the full rule book online, and you could start playing like larger, I guess true Warcry rather than Warcry Light.
Yep. Yeah.
But it is I do. I mean, how do you feel like about the core mechanics of it? Because again, it comes back to this thing of like, are you continuously rolling dice? Because I think Warcry feels more akin to Warmachine, because it's just like you do one roll to hit. Well, it's even quicker than Warmachine actually, because it's just one roll to hit, and you work out the damage from it.
Yep. Yeah. No, it was very fast. I mean, again, we probably played for like 3 hours, maybe 3.5, and got 5 games in. So, and that was with learning the rules. So yeah, like lightning fast. Again, we're playing the starter version with half size warband, so that makes it a little bit quicker. But
I think it's even a half sized board as well.
It was, it was pretty small. I had a little bit of extra terrain, and had some of the actually Warlord Games ruined farmhouses were added in just to spice it up a little bit.
No, I would definitely say that's the other thing, the starter set, I will say, because that starter set's very flat, like terrain wise. There's no raised platforms. So I think if you've got the original Warcry box, get it built, get it painted, play now modern Warcry rules downloaded with that set, I think you'll have a lot more fun with that now that the core systems, because you'll be doing like, I'll have my character run up onto this platform, run along it, and then jump down onto the enemy here, and therefore maneuver around like the skirmish screen of grunts that they may have protecting their leader. I think it'll be a much more dynamic game.
Sure. Yeah. No, I got it painted, so just gotta play it sometime.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. So
right.
I think that's it for talking about what gaming we've done. An hour in. What else do you want to talk about? Any other?
I think
big stuff going on.
We talked about a lot of cool stuff there. I think there's some cool releases coming up. I think, like I said, like with Warmachine, there's the starter set coming out. Necromunda's they're collating everything for a squat prospectors book. So this means the squats were originally released in the Ash Wastes expansion book, and it had their vehicle rules in there as well. They're I think they may have added some other squat stuff in one of the campaign books. I can't quite remember, but basically they bring out. You know how you've got the house books for Necromunda. They bring
Yeah.
out that for squats. So you've got another box of minis coming out for squats where they're wearing these kind of exosuit kind of shit going on. But so that bodes well for enforcers because I think there's going to be a enforcers book coming out. I would most expect next year because they've got rules spread across White Dwarf and the Book of Judgment and one of the campaign books. So if they bring, I think they would bring out a book to like collate it all together.
Mm.
That would make kind of sense because there's two different
Yeah.
ways you can run enforcers. You either run an enforcer precinct or you can run bad zone enforcers, where you basically have enforcers and hive gangers that are deputized, which is fun. And then you've got like the things like their robots, their law bots, and their what's it called, cyber mastiff, and things like that. So and their vehicle, uh what the hell is it called, a Tauros. So
Yeah.
all of that spread across White Dwarf and about 2 or 3 books, so it needs to all be collated together to make a good house book, effectively. But that'll be good fun.
Yeah, that seems to be the main big thing with Necromunda is just collating everything and getting into one place that's a lot easier to reference and play.
It's a little annoying if you've been collecting long enough like
Yeah.
I have. Like you go, oh, and there's another book, but it replaces all this stuff in one book. But then you also like, but it's been like 3 or 4 fucking years. Because that's how, Necromunda is glacial in its book churn. So it doesn't feel as painful as like say 40k or Age of Sigmar in its book churn. So that's exciting. What's the other cool stuff out? I got through in from the Kickstarter the second Handiwork Games miniatures background books, the photo background backdrops. Um,
Yeah.
Brilliant, just brilliant. I've got even more backgrounds to photograph miniatures against. And some of those are also, one book is just skies, like just different, cloud, formations, skies like that. So that might be fun to photograph some Adeptus Titanicus and Legions Imperialis against, because the other background books are really more for like 28mm,
Yeah.
whereas
So
a
that's
sky
gonna
is a
work out well.
sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
So there's that. What's the other fun stuff that's I've read? I bought the Kill Team, the new Kill Team rule book, and it's basically Kill Team as it was previously. They just got rid of silly shapes, and cover is written in a way that makes sense. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
playing that at some point.
How did you feel about the single player or co-op rules? Did that seem pretty good?
I don't think I've read that. I haven't
Oh, you
paid
didn't touch that
attention to
part.
co-op
Okay.
in there.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. They're doing co-op rules. That I think we might see some of that for Warcry. Would make sense to have some co-op or
Sure.
single player
Yeah, it's
rules.
simple enough.
What's the other release that's interesting that was being out? Yeah, I guess the elephant in the room is Trench Crusade. I spoke about, we recorded an episode with Sean a few months back because I got some minis that I still have yet to paint for it. They've brought out the 1.5 version of the rules, so they're still being play tested. But they've run the Kickstarter, and it's like done $3 million.
Wow.
It's massive, and in doing that, they didn't start adding more and more stretch goals. They just left. They had the campaign that they wanted to do, and they just did that, and it still raked in money. So there's no scope bloat or any of that stuff. They're not promising more miniatures than they already promised with the original campaign. It's just, this is what we're doing. So
Yeah.
their delivery is going to be really quick as well, because if you've backed it, you'll get the digital rules, and then if you wanted the printed rules, you'll get sent the rule book, which is going to be like 100, is a big rule book with Paul Bonner doing the cover. Paul Bonner, you'll know from like Rackham artwork.
Oh yeah, cool.
But the minis that have been designed, some of which have been designed by Doug Hamilton, who worked on Warmachine Mark IV. So, my Kador and Signar are all done by him. So, that's good that he got further work on Trench Crusade. But the minis will be much like Warmachine, are printed. So when you order to go, in my pledge, I wanted the STL. You'll just have the STL, so you can print them to your heart's content. If you go, I want to be sent miniatures, you'll get sent the vouchers for those miniatures to get them from the partnered printer. So the miniatures will go out very quick because all the designs are done. There's no waiting for like molds or casting.
Yeah, and that's great because I'm assuming they're probably partnered with printers that are in the UK, US, Europe, maybe Australia as well.
So I don't know how many printers they've partnered with, but there's definitely a UK one, that's for certain.
Sure. Yeah, there must be one in the US at the very least. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I can see why it did so well because these miniatures are incredible. I'm really drawn to the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent. That one's got some really cool things. I like that sorcerer again, the one I mentioned with the 5 arms. It's really cool. Yeah, they're so dope. But even just like the what are they, like Army of Antioch or something like that?
Yeah,
which are really just the Joe Schmo kind of guys with like SMGs and plate mail, basically. They're just super cool as well. And yeah, it's just, it'd be really cool to kind of just do a deep dive of this. I'm wondering if they're going to look at, obviously they're focused on the war game right now, and delivering that seems like mid 2025 is when that's really going to get out the door. But they've got to be looking at ways to expand this and and get more stuff out here. I know they've got a lot of short fiction coming out. That was some of the stretch goals. So Graham McNeil and Gav Thorpe are working on it. Well, Gav did obviously a bunch of the design and background work as well.
Yeah, because they had Gav Thorpe, they've had Andy Chambers do some work for it. And the rule systems is fairly. It's a 2D10 system. It actually, when you look at it, it's the how you resolve whether you hit or not is actually, it's comparable to like Cult. With that. It's a full skirmish game, so it's Thomas, obviously with Mordheim. So this is again a skirmish game. Where you build your warband, and so campaign play is assumed, and you'll get more ducats to spend on your warband to increase it, and also get various equipment and skills and injuries on your warband. So it's definitely. And I guess the advantage, there's a sort of, it's always interesting with some of these games, there's a built-in advantage of the fact that Trench Crusade means that you can look at all the World War I, World War II terrain out there, like trenches and so forth, and just buy that and use it for your games. It's kind of the same way I feel about Warmachine, that you can just go and go, I need to get some trenches for Warmachine, because again, that's kind of a weird World War I, World War II-ish kind of like, battle going on with the various factions. And especially because like that game is becoming more modern with like galvanics and electricity on top of the steam power element of it, and it's becoming, if anything, a bit more diesel punk. And Trench Crusade definitely has a diesel punk element, because there's actually aircraft and fighter jets. There's even a space program in the setting, like these. So that's the interesting thing with the alternate setting, is because it's been this 800 years of war going on with the Legions of Hell, that technology has progressed faster. So that's why it's 1914, but there is a space program, and they have missiles and so forth like that. And what was I going to say that was also interesting with Trench Crusade with terrain? Oh, the other thing is, and this is the really curiously crazy element of it, and is what's I think gets people really excited, is that there's also a third-party partner program. So it's a bit like Morkborg and all those things, right? So Trench Crusade
Okay.
has a third-party program, which means other designers can design miniatures for the game. So they go, "Oh, I'll do my own interpretation of that fighter that you can get in the game." Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll design my interpretation and I will sell it under this third-party licensing program.
So does the Trench Crusade company get anything from this, or is it kind of like
I
the
don't
D20
know.
license?
I don't know about that. I haven't read too deeply, but the fact there is, I just was like, that's really interesting because that allows them to facilitate a kind of development, see what people come up with, and then maybe create deeper partnerships with them and go, we actually really like that design. We want to make that kind of like canon to the
Yep.
to the to the printed to the published material, because the game is also very pro kit bashing. And so they've said, like, if you go to any, it's already put into it, like, if you play at any game, tournament, location, whatever, campaign, event, day, whatever, all minis are Trench Crusade minis.
Sick. That's awesome.
It's literally the complete opposite of Games Workshop or any
Yeah.
other company.
Yeah, but that's going to inspire a ton of creativity. And, with a skirmish game, it's a lot easier to do that, right? It's a lot easier to track. Okay, he's got 8 miniatures on his side, and this is what they are,
Yeah.
right? Even if they're not the official ones, it's definitely, you're able to keep track of things. It's not like 40K where you're like, wait, what is that tank over there that you have custom made and are just like covered in green stuff? Oh, okay, it's a rhino. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. It's I think it's maybe one of my projects for, like, once I've got my Crix painted, and the Warmachine starter when it turns up, is I will slap chop the fuck out of my Trench Crusade proxies I've got. I say proxies, they're not proxies. They just are Trench Crusade. The models I've bought for use in Trench Crusade. One set is for New Antioch, the other one is for Heretic Legion, and I will just slap chop and just contrast paint the fuck out of them, right? Make them look dirty and grimy, and it'll be dead quick and easy, and it'll look good. And the other thing I'm excited about because of Trench Crusade is I have another game that gives me a legitimate reason to make trench warfare terrain, because I just need to get some blue polystyrene of the right depth, cut some trench shapes, and then, like, texture it, glue some, balsa wood stick type things, or, your classic.
Some tank traps, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and just do that, and then that'll be great for Warmachine. It'll be great for Trench Crusade. It'll have all the same feel. It'll be, it could be good for Kill Team. It would look good for Kill Team, and that'd be a lot of fun. And that's the thing. It's a really weird thing with. I think this is the hot take. Well, not really. I don't really think it's a hot take, but isn't it fascinating? We've got this level of, like, stuff being pumped out and things feeling quite fresh and exciting, when Games Workshop is having a bit of a lull because they can't produce shit fast enough, because their IP is, like, literally blowing up with the fact they've got TV series and computer games, Space Marine 2, all that stuff. It's a really interesting time.
Yeah, I've heard that Space Marines have been selling like crazy after that video game came out. Like, you can't get starter sets for 40K at the moment.
Fucking hell.
It's been pretty wild. So, yeah, but again, as you brought up, I don't remember if we mentioned this in the beginning of the episode or not, but you said that Games Workshop just isn't releasing anything for 40K until the end of the year.
Yeah, there was something like that. Let's put Games Workshop not releasing Warhammer 40K until 2025.
Yikes.
Yeah, there's something about this. There's like a roadmap and stuff of what they're releasing.
Oh yeah, the roadmap. Yeah, yeah, I remember
But
that.
yeah, there's literally no 40k releases. There has been for weeks, and there's not going to be until after Christmas.
That's
I
crazy.
think it's
But they
just
still have the holiday box sets coming out, for
oh yeah,
example,
but
just
that's
not
stuff
new releases.
that's stuff that's already been released. So they're not
Yeah, yeah.
getting other stuff out. Um, the other, and actually some of the stuff coming up that is still quite interesting is just because it's actually fucking fun to paint. Um, is we're going to get like the new Eldari fire dragons, because we've got
Yes, that's right.
we got the spoiler of the
The
what do you call
Exarch
him, Exarch, yeah.
or Autarch,
So
Autarch, Exarch, Exarch. It was
Exarch.
an Exarch.
So
Yeah.
I'm quite interested in a mixed aspect warrior kill team, because you can do that. You can mix and match your aspect warriors into a single kill team.
Didn't know about that.
That's
I know they
super.
released the Striking Scorpions came out
Oh no,
not too long
it's
ago. So
they did it in a White Dwarf, so you can have a
okay.
mixed striking scorpions, uh, banshees, and what's the other one?
The Swooping Hawks.
No, because I haven't got new miniatures out for those yet.
Oh,
Um,
the
Dire
Warp
Avengers,
Spiders.
Dire
Avengers.
Avengers,
Yeah,
Warp
that's what it is.
Spiders. We haven't seen new miniatures for
I
those.
know. Sorry,
For
sorry. I
for
didn't know we were only talking about new ones. Yeah,
we're
yeah. Warp
talking just
Spiders are
purely new ones,
from
they
the
brought out,
90s. Yeah.
yeah, because they did kill teams for each of those individually, and then they've gone, oh, here's a
Okay.
mashed together one, which is fun. That's fun. And again, this is the thing.
Yep.
I feel like kill team to me feels like it has the fun of classic 40k, of kind of that, like, every model matters, and
Mm-hmm.
you get that you can be characterful with it. You can be characterful with the terrain. Like modern 40k is just it's just templates. It's just you may as well have movement trays for the fucking troopers as well. Like
Some people do. I've seen it. I've
yeah.
seen people playing with the clear movement trays.
Um. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's all right.
it's interesting times. I do feel like there's just more creativity going on elsewhere, and like like the designs coming out of, like Trench Crusade and like Warmachine, like, has blown me away with the magnetization on the Warjacks and the modern designs of
Yeah.
Crix, because Crix is essentially just a modern take on the classic models, pretty much. Um, it just feels fun. Whereas I don't know, maybe for us, Space Marines are fucking boring. You know,
We've seen a
um,
lot of them. We've seen a lot of them
I,
over the years.
I mean, maybe they're really boring for me. I mean, I worked on that fucking on the game for on the book for Cubicle 7 about the absolvers. But I know,
Chris, they're selling like hotcakes right now.
I know,
Selling like
right?
hotcakes. So
I
there's
know,
still people get excited.
I know. Have you been doing some historicals as well then, recently, or?
Yeah, I haven't played them. I got Bolt Action Third Edition came out a while back, and I got the rulebook for that and reading through it. And it's a lot of people are complaining about the way that armies are built. It feels a lot like remember how Imperial Guard were in like Third Edition, Fourth Edition, where you had the platoon and the command squad, and then the overall commander and that kind of stuff. You have to structure things basically the same way. So you have
Right.
like multiple rifle platoons with like a 3-man little squad and stuff, and then you have the vehicle platoon right next to it. So it's a much more complex way to build armies and things, but the rules are a lot cleaner and a bit more dynamic. So I'll definitely play that sometime, and that'll be pretty rad. I've got Poles and Soviets for that, so I can reenact the 2 weeks where they fought.
Hmm.
one of the few portions of the Second World War I'm willing to collect.
I'm looking for. I'm trying to find the right miniatures for me to kind of explore. I think it's because it feels Warmachine adjacent in some respects to Silver Bayonet.
Oh man, Silver Bayonet! I got the rulebook for that. It's awesome. It's not Mordheim, but it kind of feels like it sometimes. And certainly, there's some cool. I like some of the monster miniatures, like the aristocratic French aristocratic vampires, for example, are pretty cool. Very simple.
Okay.
Again, as we were mentioning, they don't have a ton of detail on them, compared to Games Workshop or even Warmachine models, but I think they look just pretty cool on the table. Yeah, Silverbane, that's a good one. I think you should really check that out. Probably Perry miniatures if you want to use
Yeah,
plastics. I think Perry miniatures are probably good to go with. You can just grab a
I just
box and then hack them
I
together.
kind of just want to get minis though that don't look like their classic Games Workshop ones with monkey fists. I think that's where my tastes have moved to in trying to find minis. Um, you
Oh,
know,
okay, gotcha.
you know
You
what I
might be a bit
mean? Is
more
that
limited then for Silver
yeah,
Bayonet.
yeah. And then the other thing that I still need to, I think once I've got my backlog of shit painted, the other thing is because I picked up Planet 28, which is a sci-fi skirmish game that's
Mm.
miniatures agnostic, and so I'm still looking for the right design of stuff I want for it, which is I want minis that have I want baroque sci-fi. I don't want grim dark sci-fi, if that makes sense. I want stuff that looks like it's out
Mm.
of Lynchian Dune, not
Mm.
40k ripoff.
There's not a lot of that.
No, I
Unfortunately.
think it's a design
Yeah.
style that no one's really like grabbed onto yet. So we'll see. I'll see what I can find and do for that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Any other hot takes in gaming? Or anything else? Anything that you just gone, that was dumb, that was fun? Or is it or we just been
No.
going like I guess this has been we've actually been playing some games, which is good to actually
Yeah,
be feeling
basically.
like we're playing games. And making terrain or painting terrain, and
Yeah, been
I
doing that.
guess the
Yeah.
fact that we're
Yeah.
playing stuff that isn't standard, that we're not just on here going like, oh, we played 40k and I played in a tournament and did this, or Age of Sigmar. It's like we've actually played like two. I've at least played two different games. You're playing, you've played Warcry and you've played Warhammer Fantasy. That's like,
And 40k, Chris. I hate to admit
oh yeah,
this. We didn't
you've been.
we didn't play third edition last time. We played fourth edition.
That's still okay. That's still.
Woe is me.
That's,
Woe is me. No, it's actually
it's
a lot
third edition
cleaner.
with
The rules
bells and
make more
whistles.
sense.
Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Third edition codexes sucked because they were very thin. Fourth
Yep.
edition was third edition,
Cleaned
grown up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked. Yeah,
No, it was
and
good.
that's cool.
It was good. That's a lot of fun. And there's a bit more variety to the armies as well. So I guess that was pretty good too.
Hmm.
Yep. So no, I think I'm fresh out of hot takes. Let me recharge for another 6 months, and then I'll come
Yeah,
back with
right.
something.
So yeah, I think my roadmap of things is obviously to get into actually play some Trench Crusade. Even though I've read the rules, I need to play it. But as always, I only like to play things once I've got stuff painted to really get the true feel of a game. But yeah, you get some more hot takes because I'll get the Crix finished up and I will start doing games with that and get people playing. That will look super cool. Obviously, I've got this Necromunda campaign, so next time we podcast, I'm sure I'll tell you about how my enforcers have been either ruined or have been doing really well, or somewhere in between. So that'll be good. I think that's the thing. Like, again, the other thing is, I feel like the games we're talking about right now, there's scope for a lot of narrative play. I even feel like Warmachine has scope for narrative play.
It does. And narrative play, I think, is something that was always kind of missing from Warmachine. I think some of the source books did have narrative missions in them, but
they had
you
full
never
campaigns.
heard of anyone playing them. Oh, that's right. There's the Infernals campaign, of course. Yeah.
There's a campaign in the second book that ever came out for Warmachine.
Sure. Yeah.
In Superiority, it has a campaign in there that tells you about. I can't remember. I think it's the invasion of Lael.
I never heard of anyone playing a campaign, and they should.
Yeah,
it's a cool world. It's a cool setting. We've had so much fun playing Iron Kingdom's roleplay over the years. Yeah. I think the setting deserves more, and I think people need to interact with it more.
Oh yeah, and this is my other weird thing I will say. My Crix are 100% painted using scale 75 paints. I made a conscious decision not to use a single Games Workshop paint.
Cool.
I think I was trying to test myself not to use contrast paints.
Sure. Yeah, and they look great
for once in my life.
You
recently.
Good work.
But that's been, yeah, like I said, I think that was fun to crack out, just doing some more classic standard painting. Yeah, so let's wrap up then. So lots of exciting things that we'll try and play and get back to people on that. And more hot takes when we see what stuff is out finally from GW or other companies. But I feel like we're having a lot of fun talking about everyone else's games right now.
Chris, when are we doing the BattleTech episode?
Oh,
coming up?
you
Realm
need
of Fire
to tell me all
BattleTech.
about that. I'm still not going to play that. I mean, obviously, I'm going to have to. I will be. Part of my work is I will be designing a war game, Eldritch Automata, for tying to Eldritch Automata. That's all known about. So at some point, depending on how Ian at Gehenna Gaming wants to like manage how we discuss that, it'd be kind of nice to do some like design diary type stuff. Sure, I'd rather it be I mean, obviously nothing is certain, but I feel like it'd be more fun to be quite open about like seeing how Trench Crusade's been developed. It'd be nice to be open about the development of it and go down that route, so people can give feedback. And then I think tomorrow I'm going to build a Gundam. I've bought my second Gundam kit ever because I felt like it.
Is it the RX-78 or a Zaku? What are you building?
No, it's the RX-0 Banshee Norn Destroyer mode from Gundam Unicorn. It looks like a fucking beast.
All right, let's check out. Whoa! Look at that thing.
Wow. Right?
Are you gonna have the glowing bits?
They're all clear plastic on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So you can't shift it from it because like the Unicorn in the animation, its armor plates open up to reveal the Psycho frame. So this is when those armor plates have opened up to reveal the Psycho frame. Because clearly this is the thing, right? This is why it's really why it's like, I really want to talk more about Gundam with the guys on like the Jugs podcast and so forth, like with Chris Peach and Louise Sugden and Rob, is because they've got into it from a pure from the very hobbyist angle of, because they've been to events and Bandai has clearly reached out to them and gone, here, we do miniatures. Really, let's be honest, really well engineered miniatures, because everything just clips together like, and you get a lot of plastic for your pennies. But I think, Mike, compared to them, for us, building Gundams is more than just building Gundam, because like we've watched a lot of Gundam, right?
Oh yeah. So
when I say Psycho frame to you, you're like, yeah, okay, or a new type, or what's the system in Iron-Blooded Orphans? Is it the Alea? Is it the Alea Venier?
Yeah, I didn't get far enough in that one, but yeah, there's some wacky designs in that one. Really cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because this is the thing I love about Iron-Blooded. I think this is the same reason why you like Iron-Blooded Orphans, is because all other Gundam series have like the ridiculous, like, beam sabers and beam cannons galore, and Iron-Blooded Orphans is like every fucking Gundam has got nano layered armor, which means energy weapons are useless against them. So all the Gundams have gone like have gone medieval on each other and have got like massive maces and standard projectile weapon cannons, and that's why that series is interesting to watch, because it's just the warfare in it is different. Obviously, it's still a hellhole, and it is sub-Saharan Africa. It is a discussion of like, what if you had sub-Saharan Africa in space where children are fighting? It's how many war crimes can you fit into a Gundam series? That one, quite a few. But yeah, I'd love to talk more Gundam actually in that respect of like if we build some, because I need to watch some more series. You've just watched the new Netflix miniseries?
No, my brother watched that one and recommended it. I haven't checked it out.
It's
I've been
okay.
watching MS Team again.
It's okay. I haven't watched that one. You just said the 8th team.
What?
I I need to watch that one. Oh, is it better than Iron Blooded Orphans? We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. It gets real weird at the end.
Yeah,
I don't want to I don't want to put it up on a huge pedestal, but it's a very realistic
yeah.
Gundam compared to other ones.
Whereas the Netflix series, it's good in places. It's not amazing. The animation's not brilliant, but it's still is a very different angle because it's like the Gundam is not the main character. That Gundam pilot is not the main character. It's from the Xeon angle.
Oh, right, you mentioned that.
Yeah. It's
so
what if
like probably stalked. It's like Predator.
Yeah. It's what if Gundam was a slasher killer?
Yeah. Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Which is a really interesting take. Okay, that's everything then from Realm of Fire. Go watch Gundam. Go put Gundam together. Go play mecha games. Go play Warmachine. Go play Warhammer Fantasy and Rank and Flank. Don't play 40k and don't play Age of Sigmar because they're blah right now.
Yeah, it's not really worth your time.
Yeah, okay. Stuff came up for Dark Days Radio. I can't remember. We're so behind on recording shit.
I got an episode about Bigfoot that I need to edit,
yeah, we
so
still need to do a deep
sometime.
dive on Cult.
Cult
I think the world is burning and is chaotic, and we've also got a lot of work going on, which will hopefully I can talk about again in a few months' time. Some more about because there are projects coming up. Any questions or comments or opinions, send to darkdaysradio@gmail.com, or you can find us on Threads, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. We've got Blue Sky there. Our Twitter is mothballed because fuck Twitter. And you can find us on the Discord. You can talk about stuff there. You'll see minis and discussions about all your favorite horror RPGs that aren't World of Darkness right now because and that's about it. So thank you for your time, Mike, and I will let you go, and I will go continue doing something. I've got some minis to paint.
Paint them up.
All right, see ya.
Yep, take it easy, everyone.